शब्द बिना सारा जग अंधा, काटे कौन मोह का फंदा। शब्द बिना सारा जग अंधा, काटे कौन मोह का फंदा। शब्द बिना बिरथा सब तंदा, शब्द बिना बिरथा सब तंदा। शब्द बिना जीव बंधन बंधा, शब्द बिना जीव बंधन बंधा।
Welcome seekers to today's spiritual satsang, titled New Age Spirituality. I have with me East Asia's main speaker, who is an advanced disciple of a perfect living master. Can you tell us about the global spiritual awakening that occurred in 2012?
Yes, because on the 2012, a lot of people believe that is the year that end of the Mayan character. So a lot of people come to me and asking me, oh, would the world end to, in 2012? Just like in the movie, you have seen the movie 2012.
Yeah.
But it's not like that. It's just the end of the Kali Yuga, also called Dark Age, that humanity has gone through. Because in this lower section of the universe, there's something called Mahayuga, where is the evolution of the consciousness. One Mahayuga is equal to 25,920 years. And in one Mahayuga, it contains 4 periods of yuga. So the first one that happened is Zapped Yuga, or so-called Golden Age. And after that, after the Zapped Yuga, we're going through the Treta Yuga. This is called the Silver Age. And after that, it will be Dwapara Yuga, also called Bronze Age. And after Bronze Age, the fourth one is the Kali Yuga, which is the Dark Age. So the evolution of the consciousness on this planet just recently go through the Dark Age and end at the year of 2012. And now, right now, after 2012, we are into the Dwapara Yuga, which is the Bronze Age. And later on, we will progressing into the Treta Yuga, the Silver Age, and the Golden Age eventually. Yes, these Mahayuga come and go in this planet, and Earth has been in the cycle of Mahayuga for already 6 times. And we are on the 7th cycle, which this is going to be last one on this planet. So this is very good time to be in for spiritual people, as there will be more awakening, because we out of the Dark Age where complete ignorance is, and we slowly wake up into the Dharma, or into the virtuous way of living. And a lot of us will have questions about the true spirituality. And all of us will question about our current belief of religious or ritual practice. So that's why it's very good. And we can call this a global spiritual awakening, yes. But if you come across people saying we are in the golden age, it's not like that yet. We still progressing, into the golden age, but we still very far away from that.
All right. Still on the topic of 2012, do humans that are born after the year 2012, do they come from a higher state of consciousness because we have already passed the dark age? So does that mean that the new souls are of a higher consciousness?
Yes, in a way, you can say that because, like the spiritual consciousness is shifting every year, and human will become more and more in tune with their spiritual self. So every year, the energy of spiritual consciousness will be shifting about 6 to 7%. So we become clever and clever and realizing more into our real self every year. So you can say that, yes, that, new soul that has been born as human, as the new generation, they will carry more spiritual, higher spiritual consciousness than the previous one. Because we go through the evolution, it's not that, they are special, that they born into this era of the Bronze Age after the Dark Age. It's not like that. It's just, we go through the cycle. We go through the downward journey first, and now we go through the upward journey. So I would say the soul that has been born after 2012 is more fortunate for their spiritual seeking, because they actually have more chance to meet with the spiritual guide. And there is many spiritual guides around the world, and especially the highest order as per a perfect living master. There are many perfect living masters in this world after 2012, because human is more ready to practice the high spiritual path.
Is this the reason why more people are becoming more spiritual? For example, changing their diet to a more vegan diet. You can see that the rise of veganism is on the rise now. People fighting for human and civil rights, peace, world peace, and gender equality. Is this the reason?
Yes, because we more aware of what is happening around us, because we are awakening to higher consciousness. That's why we be able to see everything as a whole, more than everything in small pieces. That's why humanity will be awakening more into the concept of peace, into the concept of selflessness. That's why they don't want to be in control. And, and because of this raising of spiritual consciousness, that's why we want to embrace more the higher concept, more than the old concept of controlling wars, or or the selfish act. That's why. And also the veganism, it's also come hand in hand with the spiritual awakening as well. Because the more you purify yourself, the more you raise your level of awareness. That's why there's a movement of vegetarian and veganism happening, because people feel like they should do anything more to clean up themselves from inside. That's why that's deep inside us that we want this change, and we feel like we can do it now because we have the support energy of the shifting of energy from the dark age toward the golden age now.
Right. The next question is, I don't think it's a spiritual question, but I'm just going to ask. Is living with traditional family values the correct way of living? For example, a man has to go out to work, a woman has to support the household. Because I think in this day and age, the roles are fairly mixed. Both men and women sometimes go to work, or sometimes the woman is the main provider, whereas the man stays at home to look after the kids. So, yeah, is this the correct way of living, in your opinion?
Because you said previously about people waking up more and want to change from the old way of living. They're willing to change about their diet, to be a better, lighter one, as vegan diet or vegetarian diet. And yet, the role of the female and the male leader in the family will change as well, because people will ask more about the right, human right, civil right, peace, and yet also about the equality in the family or in the society. Because if we be able to do that, then we be able to respect one another more. And that's the right way to live, that's the right way to evolve.
Okay. So the next question is more about censorship. Should we be concerned about censorship and government control in our own country? Will future seekers be unable to seek higher awareness as the media is blocked and controlled? Because I know for some countries, YouTube is blocked, so you cannot be exposed to, for example, spiritual videos, spiritual discourses on YouTube itself. Should this be a concern, in your opinion?
Yes, the censorship will happen, and the government or some leader in some country, they will always try to do this. And this is not new, because, the one who have power will always want to remain in power to control. Because if they lose control, then they lose the power. It's the power game. But this power game only happens in the karmic realm, where they can control one another. But for the people who seek enlightenment, or the people who seek the spiritual awakening to the higher awareness, that higher than this karmic realm, they will never be in control of anyone, because their seeking will be intense, and that seeking will guide them to liberation. Liberation, I mean spiritual liberation, that they've been liberated from their own character. If their own character being blocked and being controlled in this human form. But their spiritual self is liberated and free. So therefore, in real sense, they not really be in control of anyone. Because they, they only recognize that they are the character that they borrow here to be in this karmic realm. And one day they will leave it to their eternal home, which is in the highest heaven. Master always say to us that, we should not look at this life and take everything seriously, because one day we will leave it. We are the soul that that come into this lower section of this universe in order to experience the separation. And in this separation, we create the character. So we born into the separate mind. So we born into the separate viewpoint. Because as soul, we are one to begin with, right? We are soul, and that soul separate from God. So at that time, we are individual soul. And after we become individual soul, we create different bodies. And the first body that we go into is the body of the mind, where we embrace the different point of view from one another. And after that, we enter into emotional body or astral body in order to, experience different emotions from one to the other. After that body, we also go into different physical body. And right now, because we're so far away from our true origin, which is from God, so we see everything in separation. You separate one from the other, you see the world from this different perspective. And some of the soul will enjoy this character, will enjoy to be in the ignorance and let other people control their life. Because this is just the game, this is just the drama that we are in. And one day the soul know very well that we will get out of this. But the get out part is actually more difficult than the get in part. Because the get in part, we always voluntary, you volunteer to come down. But the get out part is more difficult because we already ignorance and forget of who we truly are. So therefore, God sent the representative. God sent help for us as a perfect living master, a person that go through the experience of separation in human form just like us, but they have consciousness of the true home. They have consciousness of God. So they operate in human form in separation like us, but they see everything as one. They still remember that they are the soul. They still remember that they are God in human form, and we forget. And by come into the connection or in the company of such one as a perfect living master, they awaken us from this illusion. They be able to show us the way directly to go back to our true home, to remember again that we are in control of everything. We not lose control of anything. Because if you are the soul, you know very well that you're not here for long. You only here to enjoy the human experience, whether it's good or bad, because it's the nature of human world. And this experience of human world, of being human, is so special that every soul will want to experience this human form once, because they feel that, oh, this is so colorful drama that human go through, and everyone in this universe as the soul will want to experience this. But once we in this, we forget about everything and start to complain that our life is not perfect, that my life is so miserable. Why, right? And we lose the enjoyment of being human here. But when you in the company of the perfect living master, the perfect living master will teach us to enjoy this human life again from the soul perspective, from the God point of view. And we should all seeking the company of a perfect living master, because I myself will, from my own experience, I would say that it's the most remarkable event that ever happened in my life. Even the company of the master, it happened only 1 to 3 minutes in my life. It happened to change my miserable life to be a happy life. And because of that magical touch of a perfect living master, and be able to remain happy at every moment. Even my human life go to a miserable mode. Inside, I always remain happy and understand why this happened to me. Because being with the company with a perfect living master, they also reawakening wisdom inside us. And when we have this kind of wisdom from God's realization that perfect living master give to us, then we be able to deal with anything, good or bad, and happily go through our miserable life.
The next question is a question about duality. Is it true that in the world of duality, as the higher number of spiritual awakening people exists, then there will be more unawakened people also existing in the same number? Is this true?
Yes, if you operate in the world of duality, there's a lot of people are unawakened, like per se. Because for the higher truth, for people to have access to higher truth, or even being the seeker of the higher truth to begin with, the number of the seeker is fixed at every moment. Because there will always be only 10% of people who seeking the higher spiritual path, also called the higher truth. And most of the people, 90%, they would not seeking anything higher. They're just satisfied of whatever they have. And a lot of them are follow of the mindfulness spiritual path. Okay, in this world, we can categorize the spiritual path into 2 categories. The first one is the spiritual practice of the mind, and the second one is the spiritual practice of the soul. So at any given time, the people who pursue the spiritual practice of the soul is only 10%. And the 90% of the people, the rest of them, are the people who follow the spiritual part of the mind. So, if we say that the 90% are unawakened people because they only follow the spiritual part of the mind, where it's not give them the true salvation or true liberation from this karmic realm. If we say that they are unawakening, yes, they are the majority of people. They are 90%. So consider yourself as a lucky person if you are come across the spiritual part where it leads you to the soul level. Or consider yourself a lucky person if you are right now listening to the teaching of a perfect living master, or you following the philosophy of the master. You are the 10% of that.
I hear the world will enter an age of peace for a long time. Can you tell us more about this?
Yes. Peace is always here in this world. But whether we see that or not, whether we realize or aware of this peace or not, peace is come from within. Without inner peace, we would not have the outside peace, right? So therefore, the guru or a perfect living master is always here. Teach us to find the inner peace, to build the inner peace first. Then there will be peaceful wherever we live and whoever we are in the character, there will always be peace. So yes, from that context, there you will hear the spiritual people talking about peace. But maybe it's not the peace from outside. They mention about peace from inside. And as this world go through also Mahayuga, different yugas, we as humanity will experience less peaceful era as we were in the dark age. So you will see that we have a lot of wars as the First World Wars or Second World Wars that is happened in the dark age, also called Kali Yuga. But right now, as we progress into the golden age, as we now, the year 2021, right? We now in the Dwapara Yuga, which is the Bronze Age. So there will be less war. There will be more peace in the world.
Okay, just following that question, how does this age of peace exist when we are living in an age of duality? Shouldn't there be constant suffering in this age of peace as well? If it exists, in what form is this suffering?
If we, a lot of people, because they practice in the part of the mind where the duality exists, they will always see everything as black and white, everything as good or bad, everything as peace and unpeaceful. So therefore, it's hard for them to understand that there is the existence where we not experience the suffering. Because in the mind, there's always been the experience of suffering. Because if we operate in the mind, then the suffering is real. But if we shift our awareness into the soul level, which, the practitioner of the part of the soul know very well that, they can raise above this suffering, this duality, and experience the peace all the time. Because from the soul level, we not operate in the duality. We already operate above the mind. Then from the soul level, peace is real and it's always there, constant. Until you experience the soul, then there won't be real peace. There won't be real love. There won't be the way out of suffering yet. In the philosophy of the master path or Satmat path, they say that the true spiritual experience happens when you realize that you are the soul in Param level for the first time. And after that, that experience of peacefulness, the experience of unconditional love will continue until you reach Sachkhand. And that can only happen if you are the disciple of a perfect living master. If you've been getting initiation from a perfect living master, because only a perfect living master can guide you, can allow you to access the soul level. And therefore, the mindfulness people would not understand this. They will know the concept of peace, they will know the concept of love, but they cannot experience this fully until they come across a perfect living master and following their teaching. So my suggestion is that if you are the true seeker, the seeking of the ultimate truth, then you should seeking the presence of a perfect living master, then you should seek the company of such one that can enlighten you forever, that can give you access out of this world of duality in the lower realm of consciousness. The lower realm of consciousness, I mean the causal region, the astral region, and this human world. Because if you still have the experience in the human level, the astral level, and the causal level, you will always experience everything in duality because it's the domain of the mind. But if you really, really want to experience the truth above this, if you want to experience the oneness, the love, and the true peace, you should seek the experience of the soul, of the Param level, of the Sachkhand level. And the only way to do that is through a perfect living master. There's no any other way. Because it's the law of this universe. If you want to be out of the samsara, the endless cycle of suffering, you have to have a guidance. And that guidance should be the direct representative from God, which is a perfect living master in human form that are here to make that connection to the soul level happen.
Okay. Moving on to the next question. This is an interesting question. Will the spiritual axis that moved from the east to the west change again? Meaning, will it move from the west to the east again? If it does, when will this change happen?
This prediction has been made by Baba Swan Singh Ji, Great Master, that spirituality will move from the east to the west. So meaning that at that time, the Western world, they are materialized. And when they materialize to the maximum capacity, people start to being unhappy and questions about the material gain and fame that they have, that it didn't bring the long-lasting happiness. So therefore, it creates a true seeker in the West. And the spirituality has to move to the West as, you know, the PLM, a perfect living master, is, you know, more in the West and giving their teaching about the true spirituality, the spiritual part that give them the access to the soul out of this world of suffering. So therefore, yes, we are right now in the age of awakening. As now, right now in the East, we try to catching up to the material world. And when the East is fed up with this material gain and fame, they will also once again, you know, seeking the truth, seeking the long-lasting happiness. So wherever they are the true seeker, there will always be the perfect living master there to teach them, to guide them out of this world of duality and the world of suffering. So it's not like the spirituality will completely move to the West and not move to the East. It's not like that. Because, you know, master or a perfect living master is merciful. So he always be where the seeker, the true seeker is. And he recognized the seeking of the people who really seeking for the true liberation out of this world. And they're not satisfied with the only material comfort. They also seek spiritual comfort inside. And such one will meet up with a perfect living master in their lifetime. So yes, it's not that it's shifting anywhere. The spirituality is always here. And it's response to the intense seeking of the true seeker.
All right. Speaking of the spiritual shift in the axis of spirituality, the next question asks, the world is becoming more divided in political stance. For example, liberalism and conservatism. Does the spiritual axis shift have anything to do with this?
Yes, that's correct. Because as I said to you, we out of the dark age and we are now progressing into the age of enlightenment, which is the golden age. So therefore, people will be more aware of what is happening around them and start to realize that they want to change and they want to be the change. That's why in these 10 years, starting from 2020 toward 2030, there will be a lot of change that's happening. Being political change, climate change, or the change that you can see about liberalism or conservationism, right? Conservatism, right?
Okay. Next question. A PLM from the past usually use a lot of metaphor and parables to get their message across because the people were not as intellectual as today. Will it be easier or faster for the PLM to explain the spiritual path to the people of the future, for example, in the year 2060, as compared to now?
It will always be difficult to explain about indescribable to people.
Yeah.
Because, depend on the intellectual level of the seeker. The PLM will always explain, and try their best for them to understand about the higher concept of the spirituality. For example, Swamiji Maharaj, the founder of Satmat Path, he explained about Sachkhand, that Sachkhand looked like very tall tree with a lot of jewels, diamonds, rubies in it. Because people or the seeker at that time, they are very simple-minded, right? They are meek people. They're not complicate in their mind. So they, can understand that context, and the PLM at that time, right? Master at that time have to explain Sachkhand or our true home in a way that is appeal to them. But it doesn't mean that Sachkhand have look like a tree, with many studs, jewels, diamonds, rubies, gold, like that. No, it's not exactly mean like that, right? So the master in every age will try to explain the indescribable as best to the seeker, to give them motivation to what is our origin, what is our true home. To make it appeal to them, to make them wanting to go back to their home. It's as simple as that. And it will always difficult, very difficult, to explain the indescribable, because the high spiritual part, you have to experience it to know what it is exactly. We can't really explain about our true home. We can't really explain what is the soul. Just like we cannot explain what love is. You have to experience it to know what it's like to be loved, right? What it's like to be in love. And it has to be from inside out, that experience. You can't make it happen. You can't forcing it into anyone. So yet, I myself know very well that, I'm talking about the truth to all of you now, and I will always try my best to explain what is the truth is. in simple way for all of you to understand. But I myself never feel satisfying, like the way I explain the truth to you, because all of you, have to experience it for yourself. Then you will understand what I try to say to you. Because in human language, it's so poor. To explain the truth is so far away from the truth. How can I use this illusion language to explain about the truth? It's nearly impossible. So therefore, we always, have questions about the truth. That's why Master giving the satsang about the truth and always go around the world to explain the truth. Why? Because it's the explanation of the truth is for the mind. And the actual experience is for the soul. And hopefully that some of you will be lucky enough to experience the truth for yourself. Then you can understand the teaching of the truth fully.
The last question for this satsang, which I think is appropriate. Can the teachings of spirituality be zapped into the human minds in the future? So I think the question is asking whether the teachings of spirituality, can it be downloaded into the human minds in the future with future technology?
Yes, the mind can be download a lot of things, like intellectual knowledge. It can be possible to download into the human mind, but not the spiritual awakening. Because spiritual awakening is beyond the capacity of the mind. The mind will malfunction if we stop the true spiritual knowledge or the true wisdom into it. Because it's beyond the realm of the mind, and and the mind will not comprehend about that. Just like the mind cannot understand God, the mind cannot understand love, the mind cannot understand oneness. So the mind will have problem big time if somebody stop the true spiritual wisdom into it, Then I would say, I would answer to this question is that it's impossible to do that. At any time, in the past, in the present, or in the future, it's impossible.
That's it for today's satsang. Thank you, main speaker, for spending time with us for this satsang. If you want more information about Ista Asia, please go to www.istaasia.com. You may also subscribe to our newsletter or email us any inquiries you may have regarding spirituality. Thank you for listening.